Welcome back and thanks for staying with us on the Friday AM edition of Newsfeed. Now, the State Capture Commission of Inquiry has been hearing Eskom-related evidence from former Public Enterprises Minister Lynne Brown. Yesterday, the former Eskom Chief Financial Officer Anoj Singh told the Commission that he was approached by Brown in June of 2015 regarding a secondment for Transnet to Eskom. Our reporter Tumaole Mohlaoli joins me now in studio to expand on some of the testimony that we heard Tumaole, from Lynne Brown, speaking about something that Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo was really looking to get a lot of information on oversight, asking the question to say, how can you say that you had no oversight functions to perform, but your DGs did that? Surely you were meant to play some sort of role. And her answer was rather lengthy, and she went in to give us the nitty-gritties of how Eskom and the culture of Eskom functioned to prevent her from doing her duties. Absolutely. And I think for the first time we are kind of getting an insight into what happens right at the top, where one would say, to use a colloquialism, where the buck stops. Because Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo pushing very hard, vociferously, to say that this issue of the crisis at Eskom, and in fact also going to expand to say other SOEs like SAA, which of course has now really been run to ground, so to speak. This was a long time coming. Why was it that those who were tasked with the oversight in terms of the level, at the level of ministerial level, to intervene, why did they fail to intervene? I found the answer very interesting by former Minister Lynne Brown, saying that it's a structural issue. The rot or the weaknesses in oversight and in the oversight function in terms of interventions is a structurally problematic matter, because by the time they receive these reports from those who are tasked with dealing with the day-to-day running of the SOEs, it is often too late. She says that these reports sometimes, that by the time they land onto the minister's desk, it is several months, even further, after the crisis has been identified and recommendations are then made. Even at that point, you would find that there are several months before the point at which executives tasked with managing these state-owned enterprises realize that there is a real problem. So you find that even maybe a year or so after the root of the problem, that's when the minister would then get this particular report, and then is then tasked with trying to find a solution, in fact, overnight. What I found also interesting was the fact that she also alluded very briefly to the fact that the change in how SOEs contracts, long-standing contracts, and those who had been benefiting. Once new players were trying to be brought in line with the transformational agenda of the country, then we had seen major problems starting to appear. This is a very interesting point, because this is the point that former Eskom CEOs like Brian Molefe have been harping on. In fact, even board directors like Zola Tsotsi and Dr. Ben Ngubane have touched on this problem, to say that long-standing contracts with multinationals that have been benefiting from operations and from the profits of state-owned enterprises, once you touch on that, you sort of hit a raw nerve, and things are put into play that would then disrupt the operations and create a crisis. Issues of the pricing, for instance, of coal, international pricing models. So is this just an excuse? It's very interesting to hear that there seems to be a consistent narrative amongst those who have come before the Commission with very difficult questions to answer. Lynne Brown herself saying that she has been unfairly labeled as the Minister of State Capture. Yeah. And you would hear the same kind of assertions being made by Brian Molefe and many others who have come. In fact, Lynne Brown was trying to move away. I mean, she did try and put Brian Molefe's, speaking about the attacks that he's endured over this period, and then decided to move away from that and speak about the impact, her personal experiences, as to why she then, decided to also come out of active politics, saying that she, the attacks were driven by a campaign that must make sure that they push the narrative that she's capturing, she's involved in state capture, and she spoke about how the attacks were now personal, dealing with her family members and friends, saying that her father was also ill at the time, but speaking about the pressure that it really was quite a lot.
Yes, it was really quite a lot, and when you look at how central, for instance, Eskom is to the economy, and Eskom is basically the engine, if you would, of the economy, keeping the lights on. With the lights on, people are able to conduct their business. And load shedding really shows just how important the question of oversight and management of Eskom is to the functioning of the broader economy of the country. And when she talks about the personal attacks and being called a Gupta minister, so to speak, or a captured minister, and the kind of impact that it had, it speaks to just how important the issue of who gains what from Eskom and how big those gains are. She made an interesting comment saying that people would come into Eskom as small-time players and strike a deal, and overnight they became multi-millionaires. Yeah, and this is why this particular entity is so, fought over and so viciously fought over. When you hear that even the minister wasn't immune to such attacks, we've heard from the various evidence streams how those who were operational within the entity, when they tried to intervene or question certain decisions, they were hounded out, and some even had post-traumatic stress from some of those attacks that they personally engaged in. That just goes to show you just what's at stake and the value of that state-owned entity.
But she has put it out there that she has been known for being a corruption buster, a stabilizer, someone who is far away from corruption, and she wants to clear her name, and she's come with the hope of clearing her name and help to set her reputation on par again, saying that this occasion is an important one.
Absolutely, and it kind of speaks to the issue of someone who was a principal in terms of her position in governance, and how criticism has been leveled at the Commission of Inquiry to say that it seems to be gunning for low-hanging fruit. Where were those who were the decision makers when all this was happening? The Commission of Inquiry has been very strategic in terms of how it has been looking to unlock the truth in terms of what actually happened. Starting right at the bottom, no one has been spared, including executive secretaries, those who were drivers to particular principals. So now we are seeing a situation where it has built up a certain I would say bank of evidence, and it has the testimonies of those who did the menial work, those who worked behind the scenes, those who worked in between those who were decision makers. And now it can put forward certain questions that people like Lynne Brown have to answer to. And Lynne Brown was very strong in saying that, look, if she was part of the state capture narrative, she certainly has nothing to show for it. She says that she's been living in the same house that she bought all those years ago and managed to pay off. She's driving the same car. She's not living in some palace somewhere, riding around in expensive sports cars, carrying around Gucci bags and whatever else is associated with material gains, so to speak. So this was very important, and you get a sense just by listening to her that this is someone who really has been relishing an opportunity to participate with the Commission of Inquiry and put her side across.
Absolutely, and we're going to have to leave it there. Of course, that also brings us to the end of the AM edition, the Friday AM edition of Newsfeed. Of course, the State Capture Commission of Inquiry is still a big story that we continue to monitor as former Public Enterprises Minister Lynne Brown continues to give details when it comes to her links regarding Eskom-related evidence.